Hello and welcome to the Film Pulse Podcast. This is episode number 353. My name's Adam Patterson. With me today we got Kevin Rakestraw. Hey, Kevin.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm good. Yeah.
I'm in the process of like redecorating my entire apartment, so I may sound a little bit more echoey than usual because like I'm moving my rug. So like I got a new bed and we put our rug underneath the bed to sort of separate it a little bit more. It looks really nice, but I need to replace the rug in the living room area. So I'm working with a lot of hardwood floors right now.
Gotcha.
So I may sound a little bit more echoey than usual, and I apologize for that. The 2020 Slamdance Film Festival is happening as we speak, and this week we'll be taking a look at 3 movies screening there: Murmur, Residue, and Beware of Dog. I'll also be giving my impressions on a couple other things that I've seen there so far, and we'll also be going over some we're watching on the watch list, new releases in theaters, VOD, and Blu-ray. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Please remember to review us on iTunes if you get a moment. That would be super helpful. Just 2 quick housekeeping notes. New Ryan Watches movie is dropping this week. We're on a roll. We're on a roll, baby.
Watch out.
We are on a roll with this Ryan Watches movie thing. New Saved by the 90s is going to be dropping on this week as well. Today, actually, as you're listening to this, there's a new Saved by the 90s that dropped. We talked about January monster movies. It was a fun episode, so be sure to subscribe to the Saved by the 90s feed for that. You can also go to filmpulse.net and give it a listen. It'll also be on our YouTube channel and all of that. All right, with that, I think we can jump into some slammy dance stuff. Now, right at the top, before we get into our first movie, I must say, so far, now I haven't seen everything at Slamdance yet. There's still a couple other things that I want to check out. I got to say, I think this year is a pretty good year for Slamdance overall.
Yeah.
In the past, I think maybe it was last year and the year before, I really wasn't impressed with like anything I saw at Slamdance. I think Slamdance had a couple of years where it was just like a little meh, but I think this year has been a really solid year for them. I think it's almost a return to form for Slamdance. Really interesting picks for them. Which movie do you want to start with?
Start with the Murmur. Let's knock that one out.
You were reading my mind.
Because I already kind of talked about this on the prior episode.
So you saw this at the Vancouver International Film Festival, right?
Correct.
So we won't get too deep into this one because you already did talk about it in a previous episode not too long ago, just a couple months ago. This is directed by Heather Young, also written by Heather Young. I have a synopsis here. When an elderly dog is scheduled to be euthanized, Donna decides to take the dog home to fill the emptiness she feels. Donna begins to take home more and more animals, and she is soon in over her head. I guess I'll start this one off since you also wrote a review for this one too, right?
Yes, I pretty much did. I did everything you could do with this movie.
Yeah, you have
talked about it,
written review,
wrote about it.
Yeah, written review podcast. So I remember you telling me that you thought I was going to like this one.
Was I wrong?
No, you were not wrong. You were 100% right. I really enjoyed this one.
Good.
Pretty much all aspects of it, starting with Charlie. Oh boy, did I love Charlie. He was this dog. So if you're not familiar, if you're new to the show, I'm a huge dog lover. So any movie that involves dogs, I'm pretty much on board with, except for like those like A Dog's Purpose and all of those ones. I can't get behind those, but this one, I really loved Charlie and all the dogs. I thought that it was sad in a lot of ways. It was this woman who, to step back a little bit, she gets a DUI and she's like on some kind of program where she has to, I guess, get a job. And she gets a job at this animal shelter, and I guess she's trying to reconnect with her daughter, who something happened. They don't really get into it too much. Something happened that her daughter basically disowns her and wants nothing to do with her. So she's a single lady living on her own. She seems very lonely, but she's also trying to make a positive change in her life. She's working at this animal shelter. She's trying to give up drinking, and I think she just has like this kind of void in her life, and she ends up adopting Charlie because she gets diagnosed with a heart murmur, and Charlie also has a heart murmur, and among other health issues. He's an elderly dog, and so I think she has this sort of instant bond with him, and she adopts him, and this just leads to a slippery slope where she just starts adopting these dogs left and right all over the place, and cats and hamsters and everything.
And just not really even adopting some of them, just taking them.
Yeah, just taking them
without telling anyone.
Yeah, so the work lets her adopt Charlie, and then they let her adopt a cat, and then they're like, that's it. Like, I guess that's probably a common thing. I would imagine that really is a common thing where you have employees at these shelters who truly care about these animals and don't want to see them suffer. And I think,
yeah.
I imagine that if I was working in a place like that, I would want to just take all these animals home too.
Yeah, 100%. I think I would every time I'm like, this dog here is scheduled for euthanasia today. Like, I'll adopt it. I'll take him home.
I think it'd be really tempting to do that. And I'm sure that that's a really major problem where people have good intentions and they end up adopting all these animals and can't care for them. And they end up being in a worse environment than if they were just at the shelter. But anyway, that's sort of what happens here. She basically trades one addiction for another, and it's kind of sad, but it's really, really well crafted. I love how at the beginning she is like in complete control. When she just has Charlie, she's like cleaning all the time.
Things are looking so good, man.
She's happy. She's cleaning all the time. She's feeling good. She's not drinking. But as it progresses, when they go back to her apartment, you just see it like slowly get more and more disgusting, where it's completely out of her control. She's not even bothering to clean anymore. Yeah. It just gets worse and worse and worse.
I do feel like was her name Crystal? I do feel like she was a snitch, because I feel like with Don, like, she just needs some help. You just need a little bit of help. She got into like a little bit of a depressive state there. Things kind of got out of control, but just help her. But instead, she's just like, she didn't say anything. The next thing you know, they're coming and taking all of our animals away. It's like, God damn it, Crystal, fucker.
Yeah, like we said at the top, Charlie is an elderly dog, and I mean, going into it, she knew that Charlie wasn't going to live very long, even knowing that going into it, it doesn't necessarily help. It doesn't help ease the pain of losing a pet. And once things get out of control and Charlie gets really sick and she needs help, she gets one of her coworkers to come in, and when her coworker sees the state of her apartment, they end up inevitably taking all the dogs and animals. But I feel like you could leave like one or two, right? Like, why strip her of all of her pets?
Yeah, I don't know how things work in Canada, because I was also confused that she, a DUI charge, and she's still allowed to have alcohol in the house.
I thought that was a little strange too. Well, they did take away her license though.
Yeah, but you get one house visit and she's in jail, and they don't even need to come in your house. They can just see alcohol outside your house or through your front door. Boom, you're gone. You're in jail.
I often wondered what Charlie thought about all the other pets when they were introduced.
Just what the fuck is going on here?
He just seemed so happy when she first adopted him, and then as it progressed, he was just like, I don't know if it was his dwindling health or just like him being overwhelmed with all the other pets, because I imagine that was not good for him.
No, I imagine, being older like that,
and just the constant stimulation.
You were kind of used to this because she was a very quiet person. She wasn't doing a whole lot. He just hung out. There's perfect situation here for the two of them. And then this poor guy, animals, more and more animals just start, and a variety of animals turns into a menagerie inside of that apartment. And it's just too much for him. He just wants to chill, watch his shows. That's it.
Yeah.
While she vapes.
Overall, I thought it was pretty great. I thought all the performances felt very natural. There's a large emphasis on realism with this movie. You see a lot of the things that happen it's a shelter, but it's also like there's like a veterinary clinic attached to it. And maybe all shelters have a vet that does stuff. I'm not sure. Either way, you see a few procedures happen with the animals, which at times is a little rough to watch, at least for me.
Well, then even this scene where they dispose of the euthanized dogs. Oof.
Thankfully, like you couldn't see them.
No, but you knew.
Yeah,
you knew what it was.
No, it's still hard, but I thought the teeth cleaning scene was actually kind of fascinating to watch, because I take my dog in to have his teeth cleaned every couple months. And I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know dogs got their teeth cleaned. Yeah. So I have an Italian Greyhound, and they're known to have teeth problems. So we have to get his teeth cleaned, or else they all like rot. He lost. I mean, he's old. He's like 13 years old, but he lost like, I don't know, 8 teeth or something. He lost a lot of teeth. He had to get a bunch extracted, and his tongue hangs out, usually. It's like Charlie. Not as bad as Charlie, though. I don't think Charlie had any teeth.
No, I don't think so. Maybe like 1 or 2.
Poor Charlie. I loved Charlie.
Yeah. Not long after this movie, my dog got diagnosed with a heart murmur.
Oh, really? Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. You can't tell, though. It has not slowed her down at all.
I think that this movie just sort of reaffirms that dogs are the most wonderful, innocent creatures.
Very helpful in moderation, like most things.
I don't know if I've seen animal hoarding sort of represented in movies before, and the way that I think the way that it's represented here it feels very, very realistic.
Yeah, everything feels very realistic. It's very, even the performances, even with like the main character, Shan McDonald, like her performance, you can tell that she's not. This is kind of a non-actor working in this role, but it doesn't detract from the movie. I think it actually helps it.
One thing that I noticed is like a lot of the interaction she has with like the vets and stuff just feels very real, and like all of her interactions with coworkers feel the dialogue just seems super organic and really, really solid.
Yeah, because there's a number of times where you just kind of like it blurs that line, you know, that fiction documentary hybrid style, where it's like it just feels like she's at a therapist meeting. Like, I don't know if this is like it's something that was like written for the movie, or if this is just she happened to go and the camera's there alone with her, and this isn't really scripted in any way. It's just a naturally occurring sequence.
I don't know, but it was really excellently done. I mean, all of it, like even like the just like the scenes of her working, like spraying out the pens and like doing all of that stuff. Just it felt very documentary-esque. I really love the framing in this too. Just how everything was shot. I mean, it's just the framing was just so expertly done. So
phenomenal.
100% recommend Murmur. Be sure to check this out whenever. Hopefully it gets picked up for release this year, because it's really good, really excellent.
I agree.
All right, what do you want to dive into next? Beware of Dog?
Let's string it to the next one. Dog segue. I don't think there's any dogs in this movie.
No, there are no dogs in this movie, so it's really just the title that's kind of linking them. So Beware of Dog is written and directed by Nadia Bedzanova. I have a synopsis here. Alienated in politically ambiguous Moscow, a young woman deals with severe OCD while her cousin in Berlin tries to build a romantic relationship ignoring her own condition. In a parallel New York City realm, a heartbroken boxer struggles with addiction, self-worth, and online anxiety, which connects all the characters on a universal level. So what did you think of Beware of Dog, Kevin?
First off, I was pretty excited for Beware of Dog. I've watched a number of Nadia Bedzanova's shorts. Majority of them played on No Budge throughout the years. So I was well acquainted with her work going in. And it has the added bonus of having Buddy Duress, who plays the boxer in New York, which anytime he's in a movie. Sign me up.
He reminds me of your brother for some reason.
Maybe that's why I like him so much. I don't know. But it reminded me a great deal of some of her shorts. Like the swimming thing, she has a short called Headlong that felt like it was lifting that movie into this movie. And then there was another one called Things I Like About You, which is kind of the same thing, you know, like using what she does here in Beware of Dog. She has, what is it, the Instagram stories? Mm-hmm. Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
She has those videos interacting in there, and with the texting and then the phone calls. She kind of mixes all of that into the actual footage that's shot for the movie itself, which I thought was nicely done. Usually I have some issues with the way people use texting and stuff in a movie, but I like the way that it was done here. I mean, overall, for the most part, I enjoyed it, but at the same time, it wasn't 100% memorable for me. Like, I'm not necessarily sure what the thematic through line was. I also don't know if it necessarily needs one. Like, I was kind of having a debate with myself, kind of stuck on that, because I'm like, I'm not sure really what connects these three outside of their, you know, they're kind of struggling a little bit in their lives. But I just don't know if it sticks with me.
I 100% agree. I thought that if it was solid, but I thought that it felt very disjointed. Like I wasn't sure. And like, especially the Buddy Duress connection. I was like, what is the connection here? Yeah. Because it seems completely disconnected from the other two characters, and the other two characters, their only connection was that they're cousins and that they occasionally text back and forth and sort of update each other on their lives. And that's really the only connection that those two have. And I was like, okay, is it like a mental illness angle that's the sort of commonality between these three characters? Because with Buddy Duress, it's clear that he has an addiction problem, but I wasn't really sure what his other issues were, other than he seemed like a major narcissist to me, because literally all he does in this entire movie is talk about himself. Every bit of dialogue is him talking about himself, which I actually thought was kind of annoying. But so yeah, the connection between the cousins, I was like, that just feels really loose, because we don't even know with Paula, played by Paula Neupling, we don't really know what her deal is until later on in the movie too. Because everything seems fine with her storyline. It seems like it's sort of just like a love story where she meets this woman in like a museum, and they sort of hit it off and start dating. But it's not clear what's going on with that until we find out that she's bipolar. And then with Buddy Duress, there's like I said, there's absolutely no connection until the very end, which to me, I was just like, when that moment happened, I was like, ooh, that doesn't seem like a good fit. That doesn't seem like a good match up there. I don't know if I want that to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that I found most interesting was Marina's story.
Yeah, because you have, and it feels like hers is the most developed.
It's certainly the focus. We spend the most time with her.
She has this relationship with this guy, Sasha, who is the worst. And
he is.
She's kind of realizing that she has an issue, and she's not 100% sure what it is, even though to us, the viewer, or I would imagine most viewers, like can spot it right off the bat and know exactly what it is. And so she's going through this, like, kind of discovering what her ailment is and what she suffers from, and then her trying to get help for that, because of course she's a little bit scared, you know, how to move forward, and for good reason, because you see what happens when she goes to the doctor.
Yeah, and then on top of that, she's looking to get into grad school. She's looking to move from Moscow to New York. So there's a lot going on with her character, and I found it to be incredibly fascinating to meet up with a character who is just starting to develop obsessive compulsive disorder. Like, it seems like it's not, maybe she always had it, but it seems to have gotten like progressively worse by the time the movie starts, and it gets worse as the movie progresses too. And so I thought that that was sort of the most endearing part of the movie, to to see how this disorder progressed in her and got like much, much worse as it went on, and how she sort of grappled with it and how she dealt with it and how it impacted her life. So I thought that was certainly the best part of the movie. And I like anytime it would move back to like Buddy Dures's character, I was just like, ugh, here we go. This fucking guy.
Yeah. That was a little bit disappointing because I kept expecting anytime they would go back to Buddy Duress, I was like, okay, we're going to do more here. We're going to learn some more about this guy, or it's going to progress to somewhere. But it seemed like every time it got to him, it was the same thing. It was just very stagnant. He's either really drunk or he's talking about himself.
Yeah,
like you said.
Him just walking around the city, just struggling with life, trying to get over this relationship that he was in. I don't know. I just wasn't really impressed with his storyline and found it to be slightly pointless. And then with Paula, I think that her storyline was also slightly interesting, but they didn't spend. I felt like with her, I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but it seemed like we spent the least amount of time with her character.
Yes, it did feel that way. And it felt like a lot of times when we were with her character, it's just a montage of her and her new girlfriend.
Yeah, it was either
walking around.
Yeah, it was either a montage of the two of them developing their relationship and then having like fights and stuff, or her when she was in her sort of manic state or depressive state, I guess. Depressive state.
Yeah, laying in bed. Yeah, and the stuff in the bed, there wasn't a whole lot of nuance to her depressive state. It was really just like she's in bed. That's it.
Breaking things, contemplating, stuff like that. Which I thought was pretty. That was just unfortunate. Because I liked where her story was going too, and I just felt like it wasn't quite developed enough.
Yeah, I mean, but that could play into that storyline where everything that's developing gets completely derailed for 2 weeks because of a depressive state.
Right. I meant more like not necessarily the relationship, but just like her life overall, and like how the relationship can get derailed through something like bipolar disorder, and where she didn't want to tell her new girlfriend that she had this because she was scared that it would push her away and all of that stuff. I think that's something that's a good topic to explore, but I just didn't think that she did it enough. I thought everything else was like visuals, the music. I liked all of that stuff. I thought the cinematography was well done. I just thought that it was a little bit lacking in the narrative department. The scene with in the train station when she was like kind of stuck rubbing that dog's nose. I looked that up, and that's like apparently a really popular thing. Like I read that like 1/3 of everyone who passes through that train station rubs that dog's nose.
But you can tell, you can see how it's worn.
Yeah. They said in the article that I read, they said that not only is it like completely worn off, but so many people rub it now that it's actually starting to disfigure the dog.
Jesus.
Like it's where
because you could tell, like, not only was it like rubbed off, but it looks like it was like slowly being polished.
Mm-hmm. Like
it had like a high polish to it.
The definition of the actual sculpture itself, it's a bronze statue of a dog, and it's actually being worn away because so many people rub it as they pass by for good luck. There's also in that same train station, there's also a rooster that people rub, and the same thing is happening with the rooster, where there's like the definition in the feathers is almost completely gone because so many people are rubbing it.
Love it.
Just a little fun fact. I don't know. I thought that was a really poignant scene, so I just wanted to learn a little bit more about what was going on. I didn't know if there was like a backstory with the dog, like it was was it Sergeant Stubby or whatever. Like I didn't know if there was a story behind that dog, if it was like a famous dog. It's not a famous dog, it's just a dog.
It was a dog.
Yeah. So Beware of Dog, for me it's like, I don't know, this is a tough one. We didn't give Murmur a rating, by the way.
I gave it an 8.
You gave it an 8.
Murmur's an 8. Maybe 8.5.
Wow. I'm at like a.
I don't know.
I'm at like a 7.5 on Murmur. What are you thinking about with Beware of Dog?
Give it like a 6, I think.
I'm sitting at a 6 on this one too. I think that it had a lot of good elements, but I've just found the story to be a little bit lacking, and as I said at the top, it felt just a little disjointed for me.
I did like some of the visuals, some of the montages I thought worked really well. And I just remembered one that I thought was very funny, where she leaves the doctor's office to wait, and she just happens to walk by that room, and she goes, "Oh, girls."
That was I thought that was really that was a weird little montage.
Because that kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Just the way that she said it.
All right, let's talk about Residue. This is directed by Marawi Jarima. I have a synopsis here. Young filmmaker returns home after many years away to write a script about his childhood, only to find his neighborhood unrecognizable and his childhood friends scattered to the wind. We've had a lot of movies that tackle this subject recently. A lot, actually.
Yeah.
That dealt with sort of gentrification and the dissolving of neighborhoods. I think that it's kind of an important topic to be discussing right now. And this one takes place in Washington, D.C. And this is another one of these movies that sort of, I feel like it also sort of blurs the lines between documentary. I don't want to say documentary, but like fictional narrative.
Autobiographical.
Yeah.
Because there was a number of times where I'm like, is this... Because the main thing about this is this young filmmaker that returns home, and he's trying to write this script and everything. Like, you don't really see too much of him working on this movie. He's telling people that he's working on a movie about the neighborhood and everything. But you don't really see him working on it that often. So there does come a point where you're thinking to yourself, like, okay, is this just everything that happened when he went back to work on it? Is that what the movie ended up becoming? Because that's what we're seeing. Because also, like, his friends and stuff did not seem that into him making a movie, which comes across pretty good in the movie Residue.
Well, yeah, I mean, the one dude flat out like,
oh man, that scene where he tells him about his little idea that he has.
Mm-hmm.
Oof. Have you ever been like that destroyed by a friend?
No, I don't think so. It's pretty heavy. So this, in a lot of ways, this is basically an autobiographical film. It's about him. He actually did go back to Washington D.C. in his old neighborhood, and he tried to write this movie, and he wanted to reconnect with a lot of his childhood friends, and he found out that a lot of them were displaced, moving out of the area, or some of them were in jail, some of them died, and there was one, his best friend, who he just couldn't find. Like, he just straight up had no idea where this guy was. He could not locate him anywhere. Nobody seemed to want to help him. And it seems like, to my knowledge, he never found him. Like, he just never found this guy.
Well, yeah, which is a really interesting thing about this movie, where, like, that's a big thing throughout, is him trying to find this Demetrius, his best friend. He finds everyone else from the group, really, or he at least knows what happened to him, what's up with them, where they are. But not only does he not find Demetrius, but like, no one wants to talk to him about Demetrius.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it raises a lot of really interesting questions, like what's going on with Demetrius? What happened? Yeah. What happened to Demetrius? The thing that immediately struck me when he returned home was, I mean, the gentrification is immediately evident, like from the moment that he goes back into the neighborhood. And I love the scene when he's just sort of, I love the scene when he's just sort of walking around, remembering the way that it used to be. And then he finds that like rocking chair that's sort of out on the curb as like trash, where it becomes very quickly evident what the meaning behind the title Residue is, where you have these like remnants of the past that remain, but it's like it's all been washed over. It's all been sort of scrubbed clean, and the memories of what that place once was and how important that neighborhood was to a lot of people is being wiped away. And I thought that how that was represented in this movie was done in a really thoughtful and artistic way. And I really, that was one of the things that struck me the most about this movie.
Yeah, and I do really like at least it was for me, it was a very disorienting endeavor where like the visual, like it goes in and out between, like his memories and like the actual present day. Sometimes they bleed together.
Yeah, sometimes you're not even sure.
You're never 100% yeah, because at first, like when they first showed that kid, I had no idea that kid was him.
Yeah, because
and I'm just like, oh, okay. There's a kid there.
I thought that kid was like, if that was like a present day kid. I didn't realize that was sort of his memories bleeding into reality, especially because there's a scene where they show the kid playing with a fidget spinner. And that really threw me for a loop. I'm like, there's no way fidget spinners were around back then. What's going on here? So
but then I think he uses it because there's a couple of things in this movie that just floored me. And I think him using that towards the end really got me with when he visits his friend.
That was in
prison. The way that he does that is just phenomenal.
I had that written down because I really wanted to make sure that I didn't forget to mention that. I think that was by far the best scene in the whole movie. How he structured that and how he presented that when he goes to visit his friend in prison and talk and like sort of catch up with him and talk about the past and stuff, and how he shot that I thought was absolutely phenomenal. Like, just, man, what a scene.
He did. Yeah. And he does the editing too, because it's this like perfect transition where it doesn't register immediately, because you're kind of thinking like, oh, this is a flashback, or because you're not even really been introduced to this guy that he goes to see. So like, when they're out in the woods, I'm not even 100% sure who this guy is. And then it kind of, it registers after a little bit once they get to talking. And it was just like the way to take such a relatively simple scene of just two people sitting across from each other talking and completely change it into something, completely different, something captivating. And there was another transition too, when his parents are doing the slideshow.
Mm-hmm.
And they come on the one woman and they're like, oh, look how big she is. And she was pregnant. And the mother's like, oh, she's pregnant with so-and-so right then. And then it's like that perfect transition to the hands kind of dangling out of the car. I thought that was phenomenal. There's just a lot of great filmmaking in this movie, I thought.
He definitely takes risks with it. There's a lot of experimentation happening with the visuals, and you have this sort of, like we talked about before, where it sort of blends it almost looks like old like 8mm footage, and you blend that in with what's happening now, and he does a lot of like distortions and things like that with the camera, and it all works. It all works pretty phenomenally to tell this story of a neighborhood that has been forever changed, and the sort of fading memories of the neighborhood.
Yeah, but I also do. It really struck me because a lot of movies is kind of discussing gentrification. It focuses solely on gentrification, which the main character, Jay, like a lot of his focus is on gentrification. He's really, you can tell he's like seething underneath all these white people. Like he is fucking pissed. But the interesting thing is, though, is that like all of his friends, the people that are still in the neighborhood, they don't really seem all that concerned with it. Like it's reality. They're dealing with it. They're trying to, do the best that they can. But they seem more so pissed off at Jay.
Mm-hmm.
For kind of like an abandonment.
Yeah. I think the sort of the plight of the main character is it's an interesting one because he comes back and, this is his hometown. This is where he's from. And I think that no matter where you move to, I think that there's always going to be a connection you have to the place you're from. And when he comes back, not only does he feel alienated by the neighborhood itself and the rapid gentrification that took place, but he's also alienated by everyone who lived there, who sort of ostracizes him for leaving and going to LA. I mean, I think that they all sort of took offense to that, like, oh, well, big man going out to Hollywood, coming back.
Yeah, and it brings up the interesting, because there's always that essentially this discussion when it comes to storytelling is like, who gets to tell what story. And even here you have someone that's from the area, right? And they coming back and he's like, I'm going to tell the story of this area. It needs to be told. And the people that stayed there the entire time are just like, who the fuck you think you are?
Right.
Like,
you left.
Like, this isn't going to help. You're not going to do anything.
Exactly. And I think as far as the gentrification goes, I mean, often that gentrification is sort of a slow process. It takes years. And I think that the people living there had time to acclimate to it and just, they were forced to accept it. And whereas when he comes back, it's like a much more jarring thing. Like, holy shit, everything is different. What are all these white people doing here? Why are all these buildings being demolished and, rebuilt? And there's nothing but like artisanal fucking craft brew places and all that shit.
Cold pressed juices for $22.
Yeah. I mean, someone who, like, I live in New York City, and New York City is in a constant state of gentrification. And like, it's so evident. Like, I'll be in a neighborhood and then I'll go back to that same neighborhood like a year later and it'll be completely different. Like I don't know. I often think about gentrification and its impact, and I'm always sort of on the fence of, is it a good thing? Is it bad? Is it like, what is it somewhere? Is this gray area? But I think about gentrification a lot. So I like to see when it's represented in film.
Yeah. And just to come back to an earlier thing, that scene that I talked about where, Jay's talking about, the movie that he's making and all this, and he's about to leave again, and his friend Delonte, played by Dennis Lindsay, is like, yeah, I have an idea for something too. And he's like, oh, what's your idea for a film or a story, whatever it is? And just that, the acting in that scene, that was another scene that just kind of floored me.
Mm-hmm.
Because it kind of starts out and you're just like, okay, it's kind of like the same story that Jay wants to tell, and then it takes like this little sharp turn, and you're just like, oh shit, okay, I see what his story is. And he just dismantles him. I mean,
yeah,
just in a matter of like 1 minute, just completely dismantles everything that he is. And it's just like, wow.
I think,
good Lord.
I think another thing to mention would be the arc of Jay's character. When he comes back for the first time, he's trying to, find his friends. He's trying to catch up with all of the people in the neighborhood and stuff. And as he spends more time there, he starts to like almost regress into this sort of angry version of himself, to the point where he becomes violent. He becomes this like angry, violent person. And I find it interesting to see how this neighborhood can suddenly cause him to almost change who he is and the way he acts. All right. What are you going to give Residue out of 10?
I might give this an 8.
I'm sitting at an 8 on this one as well. This was just excellent. I really.
This is something that I think I watched back on like Wednesday or so, and I've pretty much thought about it every day since then. Like, I can't get over that prison scene. That's just
really sticks with you. This one, it and this is a debut.
Yeah.
So
which is
wow,
insane, ridiculous.
Wow, what a debut, man. I'll briefly talk about two other movies that I saw at Slamdance. I saw Jasper Mall, which is a documentary about the Jasper Mall in Jasper, Alabama. And
Jasper.
It's sort of a slice of life style documentary, a verite style doc that just follows the people who frequent and work in this mall that is failing. It's about to close its doors. And I found it to be a pretty enthralling documentary just because I think it's important that we remember malls and the impact that malls had on American society and how they were just so ubiquitous and they were just so big, and like everybody went to the mall, you know, that's where you did your shopping. You'd go to the mall, you'd hang out at the mall. And I think that focusing on this one particular mall, and they spend a year there. So you see what happens at the beginning of the year. It's still, you know, it's on the decline, but there's still some people that go there, and there's still a large number of shops. There's all of the like anchor stores there closed. There was like a JCPenney there, and there was maybe I can't remember, a Kmart, I think maybe was there, and all of them closed except for one. I think it was I want to say Belk was the one anchor store that was still there. And by the end of the year, I mean, it's like just decimated. Everybody left, and there are very few people left. And it was pretty depressing, actually. I found the movie to be very depressing, but it was really well shot. And I think that it works well as sort of this time capsule. I think if you go back, 20 years from now and watch a movie like Jasper Mall, I think that you're going to get a lot more out of it than watching it now when malls are still hanging on by a thread. I think in the future, we're not really going to have many malls at all. I think malls are pretty much going to be obliterated. So I think going back in the future and watching this is going to be just sort of this really fascinating journey into something that once was. It's not all great. I think a lot of people might find it to be a little bit dull because it just sort of wanders around and catches up with all these people. It really focuses on this one security guard guy who sort of takes care of everything in the mall, and he just loves this mall so much. And so it spends a lot of time with him. I think a lot of people may find it to be a little bit meandering, but for me, I like documentaries that just don't really have a clear purpose. They just sort of follow people and places and stuff.
Life type deal.
I like those. So for me, this is a movie that really works. So I would keep an eye out for Jasper Mall. The other one that I saw is a horror movie called Sanzaru. This was a surprise. I saw the trailer for this. We posted a trailer on the site last week, and I thought it looked somewhat interesting. It looked like a little bit of a supernatural haunted house type movie. Where it goes, I did not expect at all. It goes to some really dark places. It made me jump a few times, actually, which is kind of rare.
Nice.
Yeah. And so it's this really creepy supernatural ghost story about this Filipino nurse who moves in with this elderly woman who has dementia, and she is taking care of her, making sure she has everything she needs, and her nephew gets suspended, possibly expelled from school because he got in a fight. He was boxing with another student, and he like really injured this kid during a boxing match. And so he moves in to this lady's house too, and some weird things start to occur in the house. It's a lot more complex than that, but I don't want to give too much away. Really, really well done. A lot of the sort of effects work, like the ghostly like apparitions and stuff, are really creepy. It's almost like what was that movie? Post Tenebris Lux. Remember the scene with the devil thing where it's like all red? It's sort of like that, where it's like this all red figure. That's really, really creepy. And like I said, it goes to some surprisingly dark places, very disturbing at times. But I was really impressed with Sanzaru. So overall, every Slamdance feature that I've seen so far, I haven't seen everything, obviously, it has been pretty damn solid.
I would agree.
Really impressed this year.
I like it. It seems like every year we cover this, I always find like one or two movies that and they usually end up being like one of my top 10 movies of the year whenever they do come out.
Do you have anything on your watch list that you want to cover this week?
No, I'm done. Let's shut it down. Slamdance exclusively.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can leave it at that. There were a couple other regular things that I saw this week, but nothing really worth mentioning. I saw Terminator Dark Fate, and I thought it was better than I expected it to be, but it wasn't anything that would require a lot of discussion. It was all right. And I saw Edge of the Axe, but I'll have a review for that up on the site as you're listening to this, probably. That's an Arrow release. It's an 80s slasher movie. It's pretty fun.
Nice.
Okay, let's take a look at what we have in theaters this week. We got the Rhythm section. That's getting a wide release, I guess. I think I mentioned that last week. Maybe it was I think it was in limited release last week. Maybe it's getting wide release this week. We got Gretel and Hansel. That's the new horror movie. A more horrific spin on the classic fairy tale.
You flipped it. Look at them getting creative.
Yeah, I'm slightly interested in this. I think the director of this movie was like, hey, you know what? Like that whole like folklore horror is really big right now. So let's go back to the roots. Let's do a fairy tale.
Yeah, let's redo the originals that were very disturbing to begin with. Do it. And we'll switch the names around.
Yeah, just to make it different, a little bit different. Something to set it apart from the rest.
A little creative spin, if you will.
Yeah. Either way, I'm slightly interested in it. Jose is also coming out, and that's pretty much it.
All right.
VOD this week, we got... On the 27th, we got Flint, The Poisoning of an American City. Then on the 28th, we got The Siren, which is a horror movie. Get Gone, which is also a horror movie. Afterward, Toxic Beauty, which I think is a documentary. Yeah. Reveals the harmful health consequences of chemicals found in everyday cosmetics. Happiness, which is a comedy. And then on the 31st, we have Miss Americana, which is on Netflix. That's the Taylor Swift documentary.
Okay.
And Goalie, which is I think it's a biopic of sorts of Terry Sawchuk, hockey player.
Terry Sawchuk.
Yeah. Iconic goalie, I guess. I don't know.
Never heard of him.
What do I know about hockey? Wayne Gretzky.
Is that where it stopped? Wayne Gretzky.
Pretty much, as far as like players go. I like hockey. I don't really watch it or anything.
Yeah, I can probably name like 10 players maybe.
Blu-ray this week. Got Tammy and the T-Rex. Again, we have a contest open for that. Be sure to get your entry in. That closes on the 31st. So be sure to sign up for a free copy of Tammy and the T-Rex, the gore cut. Parasite, another biggie coming out.
Ooh, there you go.
Terminator Dark Fate. We got Slumber Party Massacre from 1982 is getting some sort of limited edition Blu-ray release. Who's putting that out? It's a steelbook. Putting out a steelbook on this bad boy. If you haven't seen Slumber Party Massacre, it's actually really good. As far as like the 80s slasher boom, this is definitely one of the highlights. Very Bad Things from 1998 is getting, I don't know if that's the first time on Blu-ray or what, but remember Very Bad Things?
Steelbook.
Not a steelbook.
Steelbook.
Let's Scare Jessica to Death from 1971. Justine from 1980. That looks like it might be a Vinegar Syndrome, and it is. Justine, A Matter of Innocence. Zombie Island Massacre from 1984. Black Angel from 1946. That's going to be on Arrow. That's an Arrow Academy release. Motherless Brooklyn. That's the Edward Norton one from last year. Hard Soap. What does this say? Hard Soap, Disco Lady.
Hard Soap, Disco Lady. Please tell me that's the whole fucking title.
Well, so the first movie is called Hard Soap, and then the second movie is called Disco Lady. It's a 2-movie set. Vinegar Syndrome's putting this out. I don't know what this is. I'm slightly intrigued by this.
I type in Hard Soap, and IMDb, nothing.
Yeah, it's really strange. It looks like it's maybe a porn. Might be a porno.
Oh, there you go.
Might be some kind of softcore porn type thing.
That's the difficulty I'm running into here.
Flesh Eating Mothers from 1988 is coming out.
Yes.
That's also a Vinegar Syndrome release. Man, they're pumping them out.
They need to. They have the whole year too.
Vinegar Syndrome's they've been ramping up their output big time. The Tammy and the T-Rex is also Vinegar Syndrome, by the way.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I don't know. Can you sustain that? You can't sustain that, can you? Come on now.
I don't know. I mean,
like 7 releases a week.
They're all the thing with Vinegar Syndrome is I think that they only do like small batches. So most of their movies are limited to like 1,000 or 2,000 copies. And I think that helps them like keep the overhead down and allows them to increase the output.
Gotcha.
Because they know that these are like niche releases. They're not going to be flying off the shelves. But I think that they've cultivated a pretty hardcore fan base at this point. Like there's a lot of people who just buy everything that Vinegar Syndrome puts out. I think the same can be probably said about Arrow. Let's see what else we got here. Angel Eyes from 2001. That's the Jennifer Lopez one. Harriet from last year. It's the Harriet Tubman one. 1001 Erotic Nights from 1982. I'm willing to bet this is a Vinegar Syndrome as well. It is. Yep, it is. It definitely is. That's also a limited edition. Oh my God, there's like a lot. My Name is Maisha coming out. We have a review for that up on the site. That just came out on VOD this week. Clueless from 1995 getting a new Blu-ray release. I'm looking for like newer ones because there's so many. Like this is a ridiculous. Beyond the Door 3 from 1989. That looks like a Vinegar Syndrome. Berserker from 1987, also a Vinegar Syndrome. Edge of the Axe from 1988. That's going to be on Arrow. That's about it. I mean, there's a million more. There's like tons. But that's all I'll mention. What about Criterion's this week?
Oh, we got 2. We got Failsafe from 1964, Sidney Lumet, which I've never heard of this movie, and it looks pretty good. Procedural thriller about a mechanical failure in the military chain of command with regards to nuclear weapons. So they go on the brink of a nuclear war with Soviet Union. That sounds pretty damn good. Mm-hmm. And then All About My Mother from 1999, getting a Blu-ray with a bunch of special features in there. Director approved special features.
Did you hear that Criterion is putting out The Irishman?
I did see that. They made a thing with it. I'm excited about the Atlantics thing.
Yeah, Atlantics.
The other three, I'm whatever. But I like the Atlantics. Because the other thing that comes out of that is all of her short films, which have been somewhat difficult to find, are going up on the Criterion channel next month. So that's great.
Yeah, I was talking to my wife about this. I think Atlantics is a good choice. Honestly, I don't think the other three. I think the other three potentially could be good choices like 10 years from now. Like I feel like with Criterion's, there needs to be a little bit of you need to let it sit, you know? You need to see what the cultural impact of that film was on filmmaking and society.
I think they already do a number of bomb box. So that one makes sense. Plus, they need to make money too. They need to make some money.
True.
They just got to make money. Everybody's got to make money.
I think it's too soon for a lot of those, for some of those. Is this the first Scorsese that's going to be on Criterion?
Oh, I feel like that's something I should know, like, right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to look it up because I thought about this.
No, he does. Yeah. Yeah, he has The Last Temptation of Christ and The Age of Innocence.
Oh, okay.
Plus, he put out his that World Cinema project that he does.
Yeah, I remember
comes
that.
out through Criterion.
I was just wondering if, like, there were maybe, like, rights issues where they maybe wanted to put out something like Taxi Driver, Raging Bull or something and didn't have the rights.
I have a feeling that the studio is like, no.
Yeah.
We'll keep those. We'll make money off of those.
Yeah,
not you. You can have Age of Innocence.
Those are still making money for them. All right, I think that's going to do it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. You can send us your questions and topics to podcast@filmpulse.net. You can follow us on Twitter @FilmPulseNet and @FilmPulseKevin. If you have a minute, consider reviewing us on your podcast platform of choice. For Kevin Rakestraw, my name's Adam Patterson. We'll see you next week.